Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon. You going to start?
Hi. Welcome to MindShifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, the Forgiveness Doctor. And we're here Monday through Friday from 2 until 3 Eastern Time. And we have just gotten back. We were gone for most of this week, and we appreciate David and Terry and Carol for filling in for us. And Michael, you are on the line, and we've already got one hand up, and I believe that it's either David or Terry. So hello there.
Fabulous. Come on in, David. I think it's probably David. I don't know.
It is David.
Hello,
Michael. Hello, Michael and Jeanie. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Nice to be back.
Yeah, well, we've had a fabulous week. Lots of participation and insight to the work that you've been bringing to the planet, and much appreciated. And just as a reminder for anyone that would like to call in, I'm getting good at this disc jockeying, is dial 646-200-4169 or go to www.whyagain.com/mindshifters, and you can go into the chat room. And so one of the things that what I've been doing this week is just asking Amy, and I don't know if Amy is listening in or Carol, they did a fabulous job. It was really, really wonderful working with them, to see if they're listening in, if they have anyone in the chat room with any questions, and if anybody has a topic that they'd like to talk about today. That's usually how I do it, Michael. So Anyway.
And Terry is on with us. Hi, Terry.
Hey, guys. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Hey, we're rocking, Terry. We're sitting under beautiful Fort Lauderdale skies, a few fluffy white clouds, otherwise beautiful blue, clear skies. It's about 80 degrees here, and enjoying the weather. Nice to be back.
Yeah. How was St. Martin?
St. Martin was pretty cool, pretty neat. We got to see a little bit of it, walked around a little, and got to play, but it was a short visit there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right.
And one was pretty neat. Mm-hmm. Nice to be home.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the starting point for today would be to let people know if you're in Fort Lauderdale or if you're ready to take a week off of that icy stuff up there in the Northlands. That starting on Monday, so you've got a couple days to get down here. On Sunday, we're going to be at Unity of Pompano doing their Sunday service at 11 o'clock, and then at 1 until 4:30, we're going to do Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And then Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night at the same location from 7 to 9:30. We'll be doing a series of free workshops, and we're going to cover relationships and communication and lots of good stuff. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we're going to be doing a mini intensive, a 2-day, all day. We'll start at 9 in the morning on Saturday and go through 9 in the evening on Saturday night, and then Sunday from 9 in the morning till about 6. So anybody that's ready to come and play, it'd be fabulous to come to Fort Lauderdale, or anybody that's here in South Florida, it'd be wonderful to see you in Pompano at Unity Church.
Well, I'm headed to the airport as we speak, Michael, just to make sure that I get down there for that.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I would love to, and there's so many things that are going on at Heartland, getting ready for the summer intensives and so forth. And I'd like to make a special thank you very much, Dr. Tim Hayes out of Chicago, for his support this week, and for Patrick that has been participating all week long and adding that support, that the input and the insights and the just the support that they've been offering to the show and to the work. So thank you guys very much for doing that, and everyone else that's called in, and for the folks that have been in the chat room and asked some questions. I'm just inviting you to get involved today, and if you've noticed anything, if you did do the worksheets, and if you didn't do the worksheets, just kind of notice that, and know that the support is there for you to take this work on at any time, especially through the different programs that Michael is offering here with the intensives and the free workshops. So,
yeah, it looks like it's going to be an interesting. Looks like it's going to be an interesting summer. We've got a couple of folks coming over from England with their 2 children who are 5 and 11 years of age, and they're going to be with us for about 3 months. And I'm not sure. We had a young lady from Tehran, Iran, that has done the translation of our book into Farsi, and I haven't heard from her recently as to whether or not she's coming. But earlier in the year, we had talked about her coming for the summer. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of an international group we have besides our local on the land USA folks in Canada. So it'll be an interesting summer. Lots happening.
Yeah, one of the things that comes up for me is I think about it's like people are coming all the way from Europe and from Asia and different places to come here. Last year we had the gal that came from Taiwan, and for people to make it available in their life, for the folks that might be thinking, well, I can't make that happen, then you really can. Once you put it out there to the universe that you can make it happen. I remember when I first met Michael on the telephone, and he said, well, I'm doing an intensive. There's an intensive that's going to be going on here in 4 days. And I was in Chicago, and at that particular time, financially, it didn't seem like it was going to be possible for me to make that happen in time and so forth. And once I committed to him, and I did commit right over the phone on our first conversation, I said, okay, I'll be there. And worked out the details, and 4 days later, I was at Heartland, and as the expression goes, that's when it really all began for me at a real level of attending the intensive and getting it on an experiential level. So we invite you all to come and play.
Absolutely. Jerry, how do you be? Anything to share with us in your process being in the big city of Asheville, North Carolina, and hanging out with your kids there and all?
Yeah. Am I still on now?
You are, sir.
Okay. It's really different than Theodosia.
Yeah.
A lot happenings here, and I was commenting with David yesterday how one of the things that I found that was just absolutely delightful for me yesterday was having done intensives and work at Heartland, and then going back out into the world, so to speak, and then getting caught up in that and having some challenges with feeling supported, having support and all that kind of stuff coming up. Yesterday, as I was moving around and doing some work, I had the phone on, and David and I were on the call, and I felt a really sweet, strong connection. It was like I could feel the support resonating from just being connected on the energy of the call, and filled really with gratitude for the whole ability to be able to tap into what a great tool this is. And I'm getting chills now just talking about it, and how supported I felt by being able to connect with other people that are doing the work. And at a deep level, I knew now I have this tool that I can use no matter where I'm at, anywhere in the world. I can tap into this tool, this resource, and connect with other folks who are really doing their work and who are wanting to clean up all the stuff that we've got to clean up. So that's the biggie for me today.
That is major, and I'm so appreciative of the fact that in the past when we traveled, we'd be in a city, and then of course we'd have to be on the road, and sometimes the support group would start and hang in and really be there, as Dr. Tim has done, and David did up in Chicago, and other folks, Sandra and William out in Richlands, Washington. That support is there, and now we've got this awesome opportunity that wherever you are in the world and wherever we are in the world, when we finish in the city with a series of workshops, you can pick up the phone 5 days a week for an hour and listen in or talk to us about where your process is and how it's going, and get support for it. And it's just something I'm so appreciative of.
Yeah, and it's right in alignment with the Sunday night building the brain cell support too. Now, not only is there a daily show, but we've got that Sunday night connection too. So more and more, better and better. Good thing.
Yes, for sure. And one of the things that was actually on my mind this last week as we were traveling, I was doing some writing and contemplating, one, the power of words and what the loss of the meaning of words really means to us, and that we're about restoring literally a heritage by restoring the original meanings of the words that have been changed. You know, Karl Marx says that if you want to destroy a society, the easiest way to do it is to change the meaning of its words. And the reason is because people who don't remember or know the meaning of a word have to reinvent the wheel. They have to start over again. They don't have a heritage to tap into. When you recognize that our words are passed on genetically, you know, they've shown with microphotography that you speak a word to a newborn child, and there are micro movements that happen in that child's tissue structure, exactly the same ones every time you speak a particular word. And with so many words, we have lost our heritage and therefore our ability to utilize that heritage and build upon it. You know, we've all heard the saying about standing on the shoulders of giants. And so when we stand on the shoulders of a giant, say, for instance, like Yeshua, who understood the forgiveness process as a way to clean out our own dissociated minds, to clean out the drama and trauma that lies within us. And then along comes the Greeks, and the Greeks changed that word to be letting people off the hook because of what's going on inside of us. And so for almost 2,000 years, people have been walking around talking about forgiveness as, you know, I let you off the hook, I let me off the hook, I let them off the hook. Look how big I am that I'm doing that. And yet our heritage of and our knowledge that forgiveness is how we undo the drama, the trauma, the pain of the generations. And to me, I was sort of this past week really reminded of, and Terry, the way you just spoke about the appreciation you have for having the support with the radio show now and the Sunday night call for the Building the Brain Cells game, is that your excitement there kind of reminded me of the excitement I felt as I really realized what we're doing is restoring heritage. We're giving people back the core of their genetics when we give them a proper understanding of these words that have been misused and abused, and, of course, particularly the word forgiveness. And if we're stuck without the meaning of a word, without the genetic and the cultural meaning of what it is that we have in those words, it's like we're stuck reinventing the wheel. We're trying to figure it out all over again. And when others have already done it, and we can be, instead of repeating the errors of the forefathers who finally did get something figured out in the way of a tool, and being as controllable as our forefathers were, and that's one of the reasons why authorities change the meaning of words, because it puts people back at square one. If you don't know how to forgive, you live in a genetic line that just accumulates drama and trauma generation to generation to generation because there's no way to remove it. And so people think that drama and trauma becomes necessary. It's just a natural part of life. And my offering is that it's not a natural part of life. It's something we've acquired. And there are forces that would instill drama, trauma, pain, fear, hostility in us in order to make us controllable. And just the simple restoration of the heritage and knowing that, there's a way I can remove all of that. And I don't care what your circumstance is. You can be in the most detestable of circumstances, and if you know that your own fear or hostility is your own and is removable, you become empowered to do things that seem impossible to the person who doesn't have that heritage and that tool available to them. So, and I want to thank both of you guys, and Jeanie, who we haven't heard her voice very much yet, but Jeanie, who's there, for the support in how we're restoring that to planet Earth and how we're restoring it to humanity. And everybody's part in it is awesome.
Well, you're most welcome, Michael. Thank you very much for creating the space and for me to be able to do my work. And if we don't have any callers or anyone in the chat room, I'd like to just take a minute and read something that I've been carrying for a while. I'm not sure where it was that I picked it up. So unless there's someone, is there someone in the chat room or a question or anything out there?
They're just sitting listening. Nobody's got their hand up or asked a question, so go for it, David.
Okay. So when you started talking, Michael, about the words, and I pulled this article that I have called The Music of Language, Words Are Energy. When we speak or write, we use the vehicles of words to carry meaning as well as energy. From ourselves to another person or a group of people, we may be speaking to our baby, our boss, or to an audience of 500 people. We may be writing a love letter, a work-related memo, or an entry in our own diary. Whatever the case, each word we speak or write has a life of its own, a vibratory signature that creates waves in the same way that a note of music creates waves. And like musical notes, our words live in communities of other words and change in relation to the words that surround them. When we are conscious of the energy behind our words, we become capable of making beautiful music in the world. If we are unconscious of the power of words, we run the risk of creating a noisy disturbance. Some of us know this instinctively, while others come into this understanding slowly. Most of us, though speak without thinking, at least some of the time, blurting out our feelings and thoughts without much regard for the words we choose to express them. When we remind ourselves that our words have an impact on the world at the level of energy, we may find within ourselves the desire to be more aware of our use of language. A fun way to increase our sensitivity to the power of words is to simply make a list of our favorite words and notice the energy they contain. We can write them down and post them where we can see them. Or we can speak them aloud, feeling them reverberate in our bodies and in the air around us. This is like learning to consciously play an instrument that we have been playing unconsciously for most of our lives. And the effect can be startling and delightful. As we grow more comfortable and confident playing the instruments of language, we will begin to compose beautiful messages, creating positive energy every time we write or speak. And to me, that's what the work is what the language of using the language and changing the meaning of the word forgiveness or the energy that's on that. Just as an example with that. So I just felt like that just tied right in with what you were talking about. When I change the language that I'm speaking, because when I'm speaking it to anyone out there, I'm really speaking it to myself. So whatever it is that I'm saying to someone else, I'm only generating that that's within me.
Yeah, for sure. And you know that when we lose the cultural meaning of a word, we really lose the gifts of the wisdom keepers of that culture. And when that happens, people are left floundering without a key to their lives. It's just kind of like, they're stuck in, well, what are we going to make up for this? And the people who are out there today, you see a lot of people promoting the change of the meaning of words, and they have no idea what destructive force it is that's being wrought upon the culture. And, of course, we're looking to restore and understand that from the get-go, from the very beginning, and bring back the deepest wisdom of the wisdom keepers and to all those wisdom keepers who've given us the truth thank you. It's definitely a gift when we have that, and to receive that gift back. Because, of course, when you remove the meaning of the word, you change the meaning of the word, then people can make up all sorts of stories about all sorts of things that have nothing to do with the original thing, but because people don't have that original meaning, they buy into it, and it becomes crazy. There's just so much that's lost. And, of course, facing the hostilities and fears within ourselves and removing them allows us to craft, as you're talking about, is that passage you read, David, to craft something different than what our culture's been handing us. And some of it, sadly, isn't very pretty. Jeanie, do we have any questions in the chat room or any callers on the line?
We actually have a question, but it has nothing to do with changing of the words, but it has to do about a cleanse. You want to put that out there?
Go for it. Sure, let's do it.
It says, back in January, I had a tooth get infected, and I took a lot, and that's big letters, capital, a lot of aspirin to reduce the pain. I took almost 200 in 1 week, lots of pain. I'm currently doing a miracle cleanse with the lemon, and I'm on day 4, but is there something else that I should be on?
Is this our friend they called in last week from Mexico?
No.
Oh, okay. Cool.
It's Patrick. He's
been
on here with us every time, but says lost my hearing temporarily, and I know that I compromised my system. I just needed to ask.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, my highest answer to that would be, doing all of the above. I would definitely get on some good probiotics so that your system has the organisms that it needs. We start taking a lot of toxic substances in. The result is the destruction of the millions of different organisms in us that help us to function. And so a good probiotic would be, I think, a really important thing to do. I'd be doing my best to do as much whole vegetarian food as I can to give your body the phytonutrients that it needs to restore and to rebuild. And that master cleanse is a pretty good starting point. And then, the rebuilding comes when you eat a wide variety of whole vegetarian foods, organically grown, properly chewed, properly digested, properly eliminated. And that gives the system what it needs. And then to look at what in you would have you weakening yourself to the point that sort of offense happens in your structure, and then doing some forgiveness around that. People talk about poor diet causing disease and good diet healing disease, and that's just not true. Poor diet does not cause disease. Poor diet is a symptom of the disease process. And the disease is always one of, I don't want to look at this, I don't want to deal with this. So in order, let's imagine we've got a vitality meter that goes from 1 to 10. If you're at level 10 vitality, you can't hide anything from yourself. So the person says, I don't want to deal with my life. I want to dissociate from this. I want to pretend this belongs to somebody else, goes into that state of denial and wants to blame an event or a circumstance that happens in their lives. And in order to successfully hide from themselves, they have to find a way to weaken. And that's basically, when we look at our culture, that's the junk food game, is eating anything other than a whole food is a way to weaken, to drive down vitality so that we don't have to deal with things. And, of course, when you start to strengthen again, you get to deal with those things. And that's why healing isn't always Dr. Feelgood, because whatever's been hidden has to come back to the surface and be dealt with. So there'd be some of my suggestions, Patrick. That's the direction I'd be going.
Okay. I don't have any other comment and no other questions out there. So.
Okay. Why don't you announce the phone number, honey, and just invite people to call in?
Sure.
give us directions where we want to go today.
646-200-4169.
Well, a topic that's pretty popular in our culture today is the topic of intentions, and how people are looking at and talking about intentions. And one of the other important things to get to is you can have all the wonderful intentions in the world. In fact, the ancients said the road to hell is paved with good intentions, because until you have something that actually drives behavior, an intention is powerless. An intention doesn't take you anywhere. You say, for instance, we've talked about the forgiveness process, the reality management worksheet. And by the way, if you're not familiar with that, if you're new to the show, you can go to the website whyagain.com. That's WHY again, AGAIN.com. On the right-hand side, there's a link that says download worksheets. You download that worksheet. And, you can hear about that, and you can have the intention to do something about it. But if you got off the radio last week or the week before saying, boy, that forgiveness stuff, that sounds pretty cool. I think I'll try that. That's a nice intention. But notice you probably haven't done it yet, because intentions don't drive behavior. What you need to do is have something that actually drives your behavior. And the intentions are simply raw material of that which drives behavior, and that which drives behavior is our goals. And so to move beyond intentions into, okay, today I'm going to go to the website. Today I'm going to download that worksheet. Today I'm going to start and do at least one worksheet. Now you have a goal, and that goal can prompt your behavior. And unless your mind is so stressed and overloaded with goals, then you'll be inclined to do the behaviors necessary to actually complete your goal. And as you do, you'll have an experience of that direct forgiveness process. And there's nothing quite like the experience of removing from the mind that which never belonged there. It's awesome and it's powerful. I don't know if somebody's in a windy place, Terry or David, but maybe you could mute your phone. Unless you're going to say something, we're hearing the wind blow.
Not me, I'm on mute.
So Terry, are you driving?
Yes. I'm trying to find a mute button.
Okay, cool.
Michael, when you're talking about the intentions and goals, I thought that was just so right on target with what we've been inviting and supporting people to do. And it's all week long with, and I've been asking people to go ahead and make a commitment. On Tuesday, when Carol and I were doing the show, then we talked a lot about commitment. And my thought right now is that, a lot of times even just doing the one worksheet, for a person to just commit to do one worksheet a day, and or if they would take and read the commitment that we have on the website. I did training in corporations for several years with some pretty major corporations, and they paid, quite frankly, they paid really good bucks to our company for us to come out and to get their people motivated to take some action. They all had the intention. They all had the want to. As one of my teachers used to say, everybody wants to want to. And it's more than just wanting to. You have to want to, and then to put it into practice. And we used to give them an exercise to do, similar to what the commitment to myself is, standing in front of the mirror. And just to get to do that, and so for the people that are listening, this is a bit of a challenge for everyone, for the dissociated mind to even tap into there's another way of doing things. So my recommendation and support is, do a worksheet. If it's not a worksheet, download one of the other tools. Tim Hayes and I talked about this yesterday, that there's lots of different tools. The forgiveness worksheet may be one of them that you're going to do at another time. Begin with something. So you might go to the website and download the commitment to myself, or the commitment period where it's to be done with a partner or someone else, and whether it's in their presence or not in their presence. Just begin with one of the tools to familiarize yourself with that and see what comes from that. Just in taking that action itself, just to even go to the website and to download it, to put that into some action, will create a shift in the consciousness of where you're at. And you'll see results right away. I mean, it's instantaneous. It has to, because that's the laws of the universe. That a statement by Einstein, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over and expect to get different results. And one that I like is that I can't do something I don't know if I keep doing what it is that I do know. There has to be something done differently, and it requires the action with it. So,
absolutely. And the forgiveness process, if anybody is listening, if you've ever said to yourself, gee, I don't know why I did that. I certainly never want to do that again, and then you find yourself doing it again. The reason for that is because you haven't yet entered the chamber of your own heart, that is your own unconscious. And if you don't ever enter that chamber and start to clean it out, you'll be run by the very dynamics that are hidden there. And those dynamics will come up at the most inopportune times, at the most tender moments, at the most, important points of choice. When that dissociated mind is activated by a situation in our lives, choice is gone. There's no choice left. There's another word we've had changed in our culture, and not having a true definition of the word choice, we've settled for making decisions. And there's a world of difference between a decision and a choice. But if you don't know that, and when your mind's making decisions, you think you're thinking, and you think that you're choosing, then you don't have the option to do something different. And so recognizing that decision is simply the firing of brain cells. The mind is, or what we call the body's mind, it really isn't a mind, but we use that term, for lack of a better term, multi-generational database perhaps. The structure's function is simply to store information and then spit that information out whenever something shows up that resonates. So I've used the example many times of don't think about the color of your car. And most people say, yeah, well, now I'm thinking about the color of my car. That's what I've chosen to think about. And that's not choice. That's a decision. The mind is a decision-making device. You present a frequency, brain cells fire. And the content of those brain cells, people say that's my thinking. But really it's just cycling information. So another really important word we want to be restored to understanding as a choice is a spiritual faculty. It's not a mental faculty. And it's something that we bring to our minds by the presence of our human lives, by the presence of our human beingness. And the being that we are, if you ask anyone on the planet about holding a newborn, they'll always reply with some variation on the theme of love when you ask them to describe the essence of that newborn. Because everybody knows what human life is, and there's a faculty of our human lives, of the love that we are, called thinking and choice. And that happens when, as a conscious being of love, we stay present with whatever decisions this body's mind makes. And if we aren't in agreement with it, if we say, boy, that's one I'm never going to do again, then we purposely, consciously engage in the forgiveness process and remove that decision from brain cells. Then that decision can't run you anymore. And or you may get opportunities to do the next level of removing that old decision as the next level of impetus that's stored there comes forward, and you get to the next level of vitality. but to really understand, one, that forgiveness, it's a true definition of forgiveness. It's a tool with which you go inside your decision maker and you remove the decisions that don't belong there. That's forgiveness. Got nothing to do with letting somebody else off the hook because your decision maker holds anger, rage, or fear, and you go into anger, rage, or fear, and you turn to somebody and say, I'll forgive you for making me angry. That's such an unconscious statement. I'm going to forgive you because my physiology is serving me up my anger. That's crazy on its face when you understand it. But if somebody resonates your anger and your old decision maker shoots anger up, if you know about forgiveness, you go, here's my anger. I think I'll remove this. And you remove it. And when you know about choice, you go, this is a frequency. This old hostility and rage, which defiles my perception, is not where I want to live, so I'm going to make a different choice. Rather than just going along with whatever's firing in brain cells, we restore the heritage of true human life to one who starts to understand the meanings of these words, and there's such power in it. In fact, if you go back to Yeshua, he tells us that the power of life and death is in our words. Many people wouldn't even start to fathom that, but David, you kind of made a referral to it when you talked about the power of words, and that our words are frequencies, and every word we engage in is a frequency relative to our cells. And if it's a low energy frequency, our cell begins to destroy itself. Or should I say more properly, perhaps, we begin to destroy it. When we recognize this is not a frequency I choose to engage in, I choose not to craft my thoughts with these words of destruction that set a seed within my own cells. And when my rage, my fear, my grief come forward, I choose to remove it and forgive it, and I choose to set myself on a different course. There's such empowerment in that. But sadly, we live in a culture that doesn't want us to be empowered. Our culture wants us to be controlled and controllable, to be good servants and good slaves. And we're looking to restore human life to its original and proper function, and that is as creators. Jeanie, does that stir any thoughts for you?
No, I'm just sitting here, monitoring the board and everything. So I don't really have anything to add to it, but we are definitely creators of what we're experiencing.
For sure.
Michael?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that the power of life and death is in our words. It reminded me and opened up the file about the workshop that we do, the Laws of Living, for the intensive, because one of the things that you talk about in there is that there's always a conversation going on in our head. And I mentioned this to folks earlier in the week on the program here. So would you talk a little bit about communication and the laws of living, that we're having this dialogue that goes on in the personal code, and we're communicating with ourselves in words internally, whether we're communicating with someone else outside of us. We're always using words and the personal code that we have. Would you spend a few minutes on that?
Sure. Well, communication, there's so many words that the original meanings have just been destroyed. So most people think communication is, well, it's the way that I control, it's the way that I run things, etc. When communication, real true communication is, I have a reality in my mind, and I'm going to work toward placing that reality intact, in wholeness, into your mind. When that's the goal of my communication, then I'm really, truly communicating. And as we restore communication to what its proper meaning is, we're looking to open the space for each of us to be able to live in a world that is similar enough that our realities make sense to each other. My realities make sense to you. Your realities make sense to me. And most people obtain all of their realities from what's going on between their ears. And the minute that I insist that a reality I hold must be true about you, because if you're doing something and I look at what you're doing and I know that if I were doing it, it would mean a certain thing, to insist that that must mean the same thing to you, that must be what it means for you, is to totally destroy the communication process. So if I can own the content of my own internal conversation, gee, you do thus and so, and that brings up fear in me, then, the person who's unconscious might use words like, why are you trying to frighten me? And the person who's doing the communication steps back and says, what do you mean frighten you? Where did that come from? What the person who says to another, why are you trying to frighten me, is really saying is, if I were to do what you just did, it would mean I was trying to frighten you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's true for you. And when we start insisting that what is true for me must be true for you, then we cut off and we destroy communication. In our workshop, Communication, did you hear what I think I said? I think you were alluding to it, David. We asked the question, or we offered the definition of a word is that of a tool of communication. And when words are being used, when tools of communication are being used, it's indicative of an interaction between two or more. And most people would agree, yeah, that makes sense. That's a good definition of a word. And then I take it a step further, and I invite people to notice that inside your head there are words running right now which you are not speaking to anyone else. If words are tools of communication, indicative of an interaction between two, and you're not communicating the words that are going on inside your head with anyone else, then who's in there with you? Who's talking to who? And we have a multi-generational database, a content structure that has all kinds of meanings in it. And when we can't distinguish between what's happening in the world and what's happening inside of us, we insist that our meaning must be true about somebody else, instead of opening the space for actual communication to occur, for someone to recognize, oh, I have a reality around this event, you have a reality, and that we honor each other's space and the fact that we have different realities. And, of course, sometimes we give clues that the realities that we say we hold aren't really true. They're a cover, and that there's something else going on under the surface. And one of the gifts that we give in the Laws of Living class is a thing we call the regulatory peach game. And the regulatory peach game is a game that we invented at Heartland, where we feed back to each other the words that we're using. And it's amazing when you start listening to the culture at how many people regularly put forward thoughts like, oh, that really kills me. Gee, when we put that word forward, those words forward, what frequency are we creating within ourselves? Or, that's something I would to die for. And the destructive frequencies, because words are nothing but frequencies, and this is what was being spoken about 2,000 years ago when they said that the power of life and death is in your words, that they are literal energetic frequencies that impact the quality of your own cellular structure. And it's the person who's speaking the word that gets the first impact, be it constructive or destructive. And as we choose to craft our words out of being, out of a space of love, rather than simply repeating the generational information of hostility and fear, we totally change the dynamics of our lives. But if that database we hold is so huge and filled with hostility and fear, and we never enter into its underlying chambers and clean it out, then our lives are run by it. And so the regulatory peach game is one where, and of course we speak in Laws of Living, we spend actually several days talking about what we call regulatory speech. And that's the speech that regulates physiology, chemistry, emotions. It regulates the realities that show up on our minds and our creative process. We call it the regulatory peach game as a kind of a tongue-in-cheek honor to a young man named Orion who was about 3 years of age when he was at a Laws of Living class with his mom. And Orion was sleeping over in the corner and was just starting to wake up as we're getting ready to take an intermission. And one of the kitchen folks went in and brought out this huge clear plastic bowl of peaches. And Orion, of course, he's been sleeping on and off through the class. He's heard a lot over the previous couple of days about regulatory speech. And as a little one would, he whispers in his mom's ear loud enough for everybody in the room to hear him, "Mom, are those regulatory peaches?" So we call the regulatory speech game the regulatory peach game, and that is just a way to offer each other support when our speech is perhaps creating things that we'd rather not be creating. It can lead to some frustration surfacing oftentimes first for people because when we're caught in the culture's way of communicating, it's like every third sentence there's a word that holds a frequency that really isn't very constructive. And so sometimes people will, get into that frustration, like, why don't you just let me speak? That's not what I meant anyway. It's like, well, that's what your words said, and so we're going to invite you to be cognizant of your words and the frequencies those words carry. And communication is such a major key in the process.
Absolutely. And speaking of communication, our number is 646-200-4169 if anyone would like to call in with a question or a comment, thought about the conversation that we've been having so far today, and or go to the website and get in the chat room. Anything going on, Jeanie?
You're on mute, hon. I can hear her speaking in the other room, but couldn't hear her on the phone, on the radio.
Oh, that's great. Well, and so for all the folks that are out there that are listening, and having a conversation with themselves about, your thoughts and your ideas that you're having, that you're processing in your mind, we invite you to come online or come on live, and let's open a discussion about that. For that way, it will open up and give you an opportunity to see something a little differently and then come from a choice rather than a decision.
Yeah, that's a good invitation, David. And another word while we're waiting to see if anybody has any particular input, another key word that the definition has been changed up, and you look at, again, the heritage that's been lost. You look at the word love, and you look at the bizarre definitions that our culture has, of this word love. Like love is sexual athletics. Love is self-sacrifice. Love is patiently taking my abuses. and that's so crazy. And people who don't have a true definition of love, and what is a true definition? And I love this showstopper. To me, it just kind of puts an end to the conversation. You'll see people who are very argumentative, and they want to argue over the definition of a word or even if such a thing exists. And it's a really simple thing, and that is just imagine holding a newborn child, and you know exactly what love is. And our culture twists and turns that and makes it all sorts of things it is not. But when you recognize that the essential nature of we as human beings, now, we've been conned into all kinds of other stuff. And if we're conned into thinking that love is something other than our original essential nature and the essential nature of every person that we think about, then we start falling into the trap of this culture, and that is, the kids had a song out a few years, actually it's a few decades ago now, looking for love in all the wrong places. And as we look for what isn't love in the wrong places, and usually it becomes approval. We've kind of had substituted the definition of love as approval. Well, when somebody approves of me, then they love me. Oh, thank you for patting me on the head. Now I feel love. No, you don't feel love unless you're experiencing your actual, original, true created nature. And recognizing that true definition, then you begin to strive toward that experience continuously. Kind of an exercise that I was playing with myself this past week. You know, Jeanie and I got here to South Florida, or to Fort Lauderdale, the 1st of January, and we did 6-7 weeks of continuous classes. We were actually originally only going to be doing one 6-day series, or 7-day series, and we ended up doing 6 or 7 of them back to back. And along about the 5th week, we were both looking a little bedraggled. And, you know, let's. One of our favorite things to do is to cruise, so we jumped online and, you know, looked for a last-minute cruise. And we had this last week where we didn't have commitments to doing anything, and there was the perfect cruise. It was, you know, just, you know, we need to fill up the ship, so it was pretty cheap. And so we jumped on it. But we're on a ship with about, I think this was a smaller cruise ship, about 1,800 or so people. And several times the exercise I did with myself was just to sit and look at and tap into the beauty of each person who would walk by, you know, in the entertainment room or in the dining room, to just look at all these awesome beings and tap into their essence. And, you know, whether they were thin or fat or short or tall or ugly, so by this, whatever the cultural standard is of ugly or beautiful, to really look beyond all those veneers and all those surface things, and to honor each of these people as the being they were created to be. And as we decide to honor them, as we choose honoring them, we open a space for a new level of honoring ourselves and each other in the process. And so it was a good exercise for me to just sit and look at these folks and really honor their essence, their newbornness, as it were, which has perhaps been veneered over with all kinds of greasy stuff that perhaps isn't too pretty. And the gift that we can give ourselves is that as we look for that in each other, when we, again, redefine that word as the original essence in each one of us, and I don't care who it is, each one of us holds that original essence. When we choose to live in that and to honor that in each other, you know, in the East there's a word, namaskar, and that word namaskar is, I salute the place in you that is the same as the place in me where we are one. And I remember in my last trip to India, it was so awesome to be in a country where virtually everyone you meet, whether it's a 4-year-old child or a 90-year-old man, will raise their hands in a prayer position and bow to you, and either aloud or under their breath say, Namaskar. I salute that being in you that is the same as the being in me. And I can remember the energy. I spent about, 7 or 8 weeks over there in India. And, of course, the poverty, the stuff is just, bizarre. But even, you know, I remember I was at a tourist site, and there's a young man probably in his mid-20s, and he has a totally crushed chest. Like, I don't know how he's alive, but he is. And he's a beggar. And I was told that this is actually a wound that parents will sometimes inflict upon their children in order that their children will make good beggars and support them all their lives. But you take people who live in that kind of a world and you walk past them and their hands go up in namaskar, in a greeting. And the energy of that greeting from a 3-year-old child or a 9-year-old man is awesome. And when I'll never forget coming back to the States where we have all this affluence and, you know, places in India where gee, it's 9 o'clock at night, and you're out on the sidewalk of a big city with these trucks going by, and they don't have many pollution controls like we do here. And here's a mother and a father and 4 kids sleeping on a thin blanket on the sidewalk beside that road, and that's their home. But in that poverty is this absolute phenomenal abundance of knowing who we each are and coming back to the States and getting off an airplane, and people won't look at you, people won't talk to you. You go to make eye contact, they turn away like, oh, you might attack me or something. And what really became clear to me is this is the real poverty. The poverty where people think that wealth is about their stuff and they don't have any wealth of being because of this culture of fear. It's so bizarre. So another word I'd like to put forward and have our heritage restored around is that of love, is that your original essence, my original essence is that of the active presence of love. And I honor that space in you, which is the same as the space in me, where scientifically speaking we are one. One of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein is that quote that says, if you think you are separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. Einstein says, you are not separate from anything or anybody. But if you experience yourself as such, then you don't experience your wholeness in your being. And when we're looking for love in all the wrong places, we're looking for somebody else to approve of us instead of come back to the experience of ourselves as one cell in that essential nature of humanity that makes up one body. In the ancient teachings, it was called the mystical body of Christ. And I honor each and every one of you as a cell in my body, as I am one in yours, and that space where your essence exists. And see it and hold it and nurture it and care for it in everyone you meet, and awesome things happen in your world. Yes,
we're down to 1 minute, but Dr. Tim Hayes is on the phone, and he has a question or a comment.
Hey there, Dr. Tim, come on in.
Well, I'm here with just with the time that's left, just to welcome you back and say it's an honor to be on the planet at the same time as you 2 or 3 or 5 or however many we have working through Heartland. And I look forward to many more hours on the radio with you.
Well, we enjoy you being here with us.
It's an honor.
Yeah, well, we're honored when you come in on Wednesday night before we left, Tim. I don't think we had a chance to talk about this, but we did a Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop in the Holocaust Museum here in Fort Lauderdale. And, the essence of forgiveness. And I took that book, The Gentle Art of Blessing, and I had the page marked with the story about that fellow who was so vital after 6 years in the concentration camps that absolutely destroyed everyone else. And I was kind of in a hesitant space as to whether or not I would use it, but the question came up of, well, you talk about all this forgiveness, but what about the Holocaust? And it's like, wait a minute, this isn't about letting anybody else off the hook. This is about undoing your pain, your trauma. And there were 40 people in the room, and we got to the point of being able to say, and if we 40 could actually reclaim our actual human lives right here and now, we would change the dynamics of everyone that was in those concentration camps. We'd start to evaporate the pain and the trauma that is held by so many people around this. And they were just there with it so powerfully. And I shared that story. And it was so awesome to do that in that space. And the welcoming and the presence of love that was there was just fabulous. So thank you for turning me on to that. And we're down to about 10 seconds. So I'm going to say to everyone, please have the best year yet of your eternal life. Tell somebody else about our show. Come join us tomorrow, 2 till 3 o'clock.
Monday.
Oh, yes, Monday. Pardon me, it's Friday already, isn't it? That's right.
Have a good day.